Hello and welcome to the episode 3 of the Bitcoin Review podcast. We continue. The idea of the show is to boringly go through the Bitcoin products updates, and we've been failing so far at being boring apparently. And we also been failing at reserving our opinions. And so we hope to disappoint you again. I have Matt and Justin return to the podcast. They seem to be fixtures that don't go away, and I'm very appreciative of that. So why don't we say hi to them?
It's great to be here.
I love the enthusiasm. That's great enthusiasm. That's exactly. That's racism. And then Matt.
MVK figured out how to press the mute button so he can just mute me on demand, which I'm not enjoying, but I just wanted to thank Justin and him.
Matt, you're muted.
I think it's his internet. His internet's just cutting out there a little bit. He said he's traveling.
Wait, I just unmuted him. I'm still learning. Go ahead, Matt.
Fuck you.
Ahead, Matt. Sorry, you're muted again. No kidding.
Fuck you.
Okay, well, we have to keep this show
It's amazing how much fun
clean.
an adult can have.
Otherwise,
one little button.
Right? It's amazing. It reminds me of the Staples no button or yes button. I bought the no button on the internet once.
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's start this baby. Let's go through a few vulnerability disclosures. Twitter had a data breach. It exposed the contact details for 5.4 million accounts. It's on sale for only 30 grand. So about Bitcoin and a half right now, you can buy 5.4 million records. You get Twitter usernames, emails, phone numbers, and their underwear size. Why is Twitter keeping their underwear size? Anyways, apparently it was patched.
Yeah, it was patched back. It was disclosed and patched back in January. This is a perfect example why it's pretty bad that Twitter basically forces you into providing a phone number. You don't have to provide a phone number, but if you don't, they tend to block your account and then try and get you to basically light KYC in via phone number, which puts users at risk when these leaks inevitably happen. Consider using burner phone numbers. And also, rumor is NVK is actually going to buy the list to send cold card propaganda to.
That sounds more like a Ledger move, but
30K is cheap as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it must be really high quality. What's interesting is I remember running sort of like web companies and services. Phone numbers are surprisingly good way of removing the first layer of scammers and spammers. It is like an unfortunate, easy way out for web suppliers. What I find unfortunate is that, why don't they just charge people like $5 with their Bird app premium subscription and then don't do any of this KYC stupidity? Because somebody like scammers and spammers are not going to pay $5 per account. Absolutely won't, especially if you're a current. So that's kind of silly. But, they don't learn, right? They rather spend all their money in making sure that none will get blocked.
I signed up a couple of Twitter accounts recently, and it was quite pathetic. They would allow you to sign up without a phone number, and then you'd show up a day later and your account would be restricted, right? So they wouldn't ask you for the phone number initially, but they just restrict your account. You show up and you have to re-enter it, and they wouldn't allow you to reuse it. So I was like, trying to get new phone numbers. One great thing I tried was silent.link. It's a really cool tool to just buy a phone number with Lightning. So if you ever need this problem, that's a fun way to solve it.
Another good service is textverified.com. Which provides disposable phone numbers for these services. I mean, services like Twitter and other services that essentially force you to do this like light KYC to use the product, make it really hard to use anonymously, should get flack from their users. It's user hostile behavior. To MVK's point, I like the idea of paywalls to fighting spam. It's essentially like the same idea as proof of work. Obviously, if you use credit cards, that might as well be light KYC as well, or heavy KYC, depending on how you look at it.
Well, it depends on who the processor is, right?
But if they just showed like a Lightning invoice for $5 when you make an account, they would cut down on probably 50 to 75% of bot activity on the platform.
So yeah, I mean, I think paywalls are the way to go for the people who want it. To their benefit of doubt, let's put it this way: like the majority of users on Twitter are not going to pay even 50 cents, so they have that problem. It's not an easy problem because users are like the biggest sort of like guilty here. Like they will not pay. So I think companies just take the path of least resistance, which is this bullshit lightweight KYC that can cause a lot of problems.
It's not either or. They can always give you the option, right?
Yeah, but like this companies, they employ 10,000 devs to create the form for you to report that doesn't report, but they don't put any devs or any people really to solve these problems. It's kind of annoying. All right. Moving on to another one of these KYC leaks. Well, not really KYC, but a form of it. ActiveCampaign database was leaked. It's kind of, and I think our friends at Shift Crypto were affected. Name, aliases, email addresses, and IPs. And I think there were a few more Bitcoin companies that were affected, right? Like including Coinbase.
There was a bunch of companies that got hit by ActiveCampaign leaks or compromises and HubSpot compromises. I believe NiDig, Swan, Unchained. There were a bunch of them, but that was like 4 months ago. This appears to be a separate compromise that was just targeted specifically at Shift Crypto.
So one thing that a lot of people don't know is that when hackers find a little door like this, they will keep on attacking that door without being too overt and try to take too much stuff out because they want to just keep on draining out the stuff, right? So, even though they may have found a patch or may have found one problem with the thing, the guys are either still in there because they're probably using a dev admin key or, like they managed to get away with some stuff without the company finding out on the first audit. So, always expect that everybody else in that same service is going to probably be eventually releasing some information about how they also got pound. What I don't understand is why Bitcoin companies are sending their customer information to this third-party marketing shit without customer permission. It's really annoying.
Another thing in this leak was IP addresses too, so that's another reason to use a VPN.
It's tragic. I mean, it's not like the worst possible information, but it's pretty bad. A lot of people forget to use burner emails and names and things for these things. Remember to always uncheck the box that says "Send me updates" or subscribe me to the newsletter.
I hate when it's auto checked. There is another aspect here, though. I mean, you said burner email addresses. It is, to go back to the Twitter thing, it is becoming harder and harder to have an email address that's not linked to your identity. I mean, there are services like Simple Login and Proton Mail gives you like the ability to do aliases, but it doesn't really help that much in terms of making it easy to have anonymous email addresses.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand. Like you want a means of having a direct channel to your customers, right? So you want to have their emails, not just depend on Twitter or something else. So, I mean, my preference is you have your mailing list stuff separate from your business logic, right? So if the customer wants to subscribe to that, go there and subscribe to that. So we have a Substack, go in the Substack and subscribe, right? Or our dev mailing list or something like that. Just don't cross this stuff so that you don't put customer at risk. Ledger had that vulnerability too on their store because of the CRM. It's always the sales and marketing solutions that do the leaking. It's not the actual like store database per se, most cases. BlueWallet sends transaction data to their servers even when using your own node. That's not great. But at least people can disable it. I just wish it was disabled by default. I can't understand why.
It is disabled by default.
Because you have to opt in to push notifications.
Why is it that the
system.
news? Well, I guess fake news on the internet.
Yeah, if you go into BlueWallet settings, you can enable push notifications, and if you do that, then it by default hits their notification server.
Yeah, but then they have no choice. If you want push, you have to.
They actually, props to them. They do give you the option to run your own. They open source the notification server, so you could actually run your own notification server if you want.
That's great. We should update that with the link and the correct story here. We're going to now start with the software releases and project updates. So Nunchuk released 1.9.9. They added support for NFC, the collaborative wallet recovery, so that's BSMS, and a bunch of bug fixes and improvements. I happen to try this release because it does integrate to TAPSIGNER, which is a lot of fun. So being pretty happy with their wallet, actually. It's nice to be able to choose. So you import your keys, similar to Sparrow and Spectre, and the keys are separate from the wallet, and then you choose what do you do with those keys. Those keys could be part of multi-sigs. They could be part of single sigs. They are part of how you log in if you want. I'm really enjoying how this project is progressing.
Yeah, they've had really low time preference. They've been working on this for 2 years, and they just they built everything natively. They built a lot of their core logic for interacting with Bitcoin is pulled out of Bitcoin Core. They've just been inching closer and closer. Yeah, so I haven't tried it for a while. I'd like to try it again. I remember they were just making some announcements also about their end-to-end encrypted chat, to basically coordinate a multi-sig to pass signatures around. They use Matrix underneath, which is pretty cool. So you can have people coordinating multi-sig, and it's like a chat interface, which is pretty neat.
Props to Hugo. I mean, he also released a Nunchuck's rebuilt our Python tap NFC tap library in C++ and released it open as well. So that's
nice. Are the
nice.
apps open source yet?
I mean, all the meat of it is on GitHub, the lib Nunchuck and all that stuff. I don't know if the apps themselves are.
If I recall correctly, I remember like the main way you interact with it is through the Android or iPhone app, and those aren't. And when I say open source, I'm not saying FOSS. I'm just saying source.
No,
viewable.
I know. I think so. The way that they build is all based on their C++ library, which is libnunchuck, and that's open. That's on GitHub. I haven't seen if their apps, like the app shell, is there or not. Yeah. For Android, that's that matters. But for iOS, is the same shit because you're trusting anyways.
Yeah, because iOS, you can't sideload the app, right? So no matter what, you're trusting the App Store version.
Yes, and their desktop. They also have desktop. I don't know. I really like it. It's like it really brings me back to that old tool called Copay, which was a very good app that sort of like couldn't handle a lot of transactions because it was JavaScript, but this is really nice. And for collaborative multi-sig without a third party, like a paid third party kind of thing, is nice. So you can have like a company wallet.
I will say that as someone who has been part of multiple collaborative multi-sigs for various projects and bounties and whatnot, even the most hardcore technical Bitcoiner struggles with communicating the partially signed Bitcoin transactions between key holders to sign and all that coordination involved is a massive friction pain point that even very hardcore Bitcoiners fuck it up. And Nunchuk just kind of aims to fill that gap really cleanly. So I'm very bullish on that project.
I love the idea that you also have encrypted comms for the coordination of the multi-sig transaction. So you can sort of trust that the other party is the other party. And you can sort of have conversations around the transaction without sort of exposing the transaction to your email or other chats.
Yeah. Like right now, you're like pasting long PSBT text files, like in Signal or
That's
fucking
right.
matrix or something like that. It's a pain in the ass.
I wonder if this will become a standard. It will be maybe that's the next level. I will chat with Hugo about this.
Well, there's another aspect
maybe
here
the next
too, where,
thing is for
Sorry, there's another aspect here too where the chat is useful. So like if you set up a device, a lot of times you want to do it on your desktop, but you want to you might want to get the keys onto your phone too, right? Because they have the mobile phone. And I think the chat would also help syncing the configuration between the desktop and the mobile, which would be really nice.
They do have they have a server for that. They do multi-device syncing. It's still beta.
Seeing that demo made me realize that
what I hope.
Sorry, I'm a little bit of a lag here.
Yeah, so my hope is no worries.
I'm just saying I'm just gonna go. I've seen this demo. I'm gonna compliment you, MBA. So I've seen this demo made me realize that these NFC cards would be really nice for multi-sig, because it's also it's like a completely different software stack, and also it's like just adding it is super slick. Like it does. Like I would like to add one of those to my setup, I think.
Hey Justin, if you're still hearing us after you're done, try refreshing the page and re-entering. We will be here. It might sync back. So one thing that that I'm looking forward to is maybe there is a standard for multi-sig wallets to talk to each other. So like whichever P2P protocol they start using, maybe it's nostr, maybe it's matrix, whatever P2P solution that they use, would be really nice if it becomes a standard, because then you essentially share with each other xpubs, and all of a sudden even the chat works, right? Even though you're using different vendors, that could be really, really cool. You're back, Justin.
Open standards for the win. That would be fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then like the cool thing with this, the cool thing with this is that like now you can not have your private key on the phone either with the TAPSIGNER thing. So I can have encrypted comms with a private key that's not on the phone. I mean, it starts to become very cool very fast. Anyways, I'm pretty bullish on this app. It's nice to see different stuff being developed. It's not just like a plain wallet. All right, let's go to BDK. BDK 0.20 is out. Highlights for this release include bug fixes for Electrum blockchain and descriptor templates, new transaction building features to discourage fee sniping, and new transaction signing options. Also, with this release, MSRV is now 1.56.1, and address validator is deprecated. A big thanks to our contributors, they say. Do you guys have any comments about the fee sniping? I don't really see the point, but that might just be me.
I mean, it seems like an altruistic thing you do to just try to improve the incentives of mining a little bit. I think it's pretty niche. What I do think is that you can see BDK is actually starting to get used. It's had a lot of development for like a year and a half now, sponsorship by Spiral. And you're starting to see actual companies use it now. Like I think Unchained Capital was playing around with it. I saw Francis Pulio was talking about it, doing some integration with it for Bull Bitcoin. So like it's nice to see that they're starting to get some like real usage.
That's great. It's nice that the hard stuff of the wallet is sort of like more not centrally, but more collaboratively worked on. So you gain a lot of security from that.
BlueWallet also has LDK, and we're talking about BDK, but BlueWallet has LDK built in to the developer edition.
I mean, it would be nice. Maybe BlueWallet should move to BDK. They would probably save a lot of development too.
The fee sniping thing should get interesting if blocks ever get sustained full in a high fee environment. But I'm kind of the belief that, if we can kind of wait till that type of situation fee sniping is not really like a deadly kind of issue. It's not something that's just like catastrophic failure or something like that.
But that's also the market, right? I mean, like, like the miners can still choose how they want to construct their transactions, right?
Exactly.
So like it's very similar to, like, in a way.
But you want hash rate to go towards advancing the chain.
Yeah. The problem with these things is that, like, they try to fight natural market dynamics on Bitcoin that was still probably superseded around somehow. It's similar to trying to prevent double spend. It's just a natural sort of aspect of Bitcoin that's never going to go away. It doesn't matter what you try to do around it, right? And because all the other actors may not even choose to do that standard that is not really preventing anything on protocol level.
Particularly, like, if we enter like a sustained high fee market, there's a strong scenario where we see fee payments out of band as well. So, like, you're trying to control something that you can't even control to begin with.
Right. I mean, let's not we forget that a zero confirmation Bitcoin is not your Bitcoin. So really is a non-issue. Okay. Moving on to COLDCARD Mk4 5.0.5. We released finally the BIP85 derived passwords. These are really cool, 126 bits. It's 136, but anyways, what's cool about that is, it's very similar to the BIP85 derived seeds. You have an index, and then you get a strong password, and then you can use that strong password for interesting things. Please use a different device, a secondary cold card to do this for computer stuff. If you're gonna connect to a computer, I would recommend that. We did release some docs on it. We hope that maybe BIP85 itself gets extended for the passwords. It should be very useful.
How does this look in practice, NVK? The user is plugging in a cold card via USB, and what is there, like a text file that lists all the passwords or something like that?
No, it's a lot more interesting than that, Matt. So you can use
quick hacks.
Yeah, so you can use USB, you can use NFC or QR. But NFC and USB, we emulate a keyboard. So we push the password itself as a keyboard to the input field.
So what are you picking on the cold card screen? Which password to push?
Yes. You pick the index and then it pushes.
You go to the password field on your computer or your phone, and then on the cold card, you pick which password you're pushing.
That's right.
And does the cold card have built-in labeling, so I could be like, this is to sign into ledger.com, or this is to sign into...
Maybe on the next iteration of the feature. There's no labels.
How the fuck are we supposed to use it? If we were supposed to remember, like, number 3 signs me into Yahoo?
Yep. Remember, right? Like, this is not for your email, right? It's silly to use this for email. You're going to have just a handful of passwords you're going to use this for. Say your Cloudflare, your SSH password that encrypts the key on your computer. You may use it for, like a server here and there. Like this is not for you to use for your stuff. Exactly. I mean, remember, right? Like, what's the point of having your email password being this secure when your browser can see it? or where, like, just the bad guys already have access to the email if they want to. And by that, I mean the government.
Well, I would say for a lot of people, their email password should be treated sacredly, because they can reset all their other accounts if they get access to your email. For a lot of people, especially if they reuse email addresses, which most people do, the email password might be the most important password, period.
By the way, props to Apple to have that automatic anon email for signing up for apps. I wish they would put that on the Mac as well. I mean, they might have it on Safari, but I don't use Safari. So that's a cool feature. I'm pretty excited about that because it does it does help my life. Okay, what else? We did the QR codes are now readable on Bright Light. One was it Rusier gave us a nice update that changes the scanning of the screen, which is really cool. So that does essentially better displaying of the screen. The scanning rate is different. And then there were a few other little bug fixes and other little things. And the OP return now is you can have anything you want on the op return and it'll sign essentially. So that we don't need to know. We don't check that anymore. So that's it for ColdCard. Robinhood supports bech32.
Well, what about the one with the foreign? You missed the one with the foreign UTXOs.
I was trying to skip some because there's a lot. Yes,
UTXOs?
So we can now sign something with a foreign UTXO because because ColdCard checks everything, right? It doesn't want to let you sign stuff and you get robbed by sniping. So there is an option now to sign stuff with foreign TXOs because we have a lot of advanced users that want to do stuff that, have fun kind of thing. So we want to support that properly. That also helps some of it helps a lot of the complex multi-sig things that people invent out there or the HSM functions that it's very useful. Right. Robinhood supports bech32. Nobody should be using Robinhood for Bitcoin, but if you do, now you can send it to your SegWit address. I am impressed. Really. Blockchain.info took I don't know how many years to support BIP32 hierarchical deterministic wallets. And then it took another world of time to support bech32. So nice to see Robinhood keeping up with the times there.
I didn't even know you could withdraw.
It did happen recently.
I will. No one should use Robinhood, but props where props are due. I specifically am on the record saying they would never allow withdrawals, let alone deposits. Now they let you do withdrawals and deposits across all their shitcoins too. I really did not see that happening.
But this is Bitcoin incentives, in my view, sort of playing out. There's a lot less people who are going to use Robinhood for Bitcoin and crypto if they cannot withdraw, right? Especially after the bullshit with GameStop. So I think they essentially just being forced to do this to retain customers, right? Next is Seed Tool. It's coded by SuperPhatArrow, introducing predictive seed word input, single address tool, and multi-sig address derivation. My understanding is Seed Tool is essentially like a something like was it Coleman? What was the name of the guy who had another Seed Tool?
Ian Coleman.
Ian Coleman. I think that's similar.
This one is more powerful, I would say. It's got a lot of features, but definitely do not play with a live seed in there unless it's on.
Is this audited? Is there enough audits on this? Because it is running on the browser.
There's a repo, and you can download it offline yourself. One
no, I meant cold review, right? So a lot of times the wallets or things that touch seeds tend to have let's say notable people from the community who go and sort of give a thumbs up saying, hey, I did check this and things look reasonable. I was just curious.
There is not. It's relatively new. It's just a humble false project. Like I said, you can download it offline. And because it's just a powerful, simple tool, There are creative ways you can use it if you're a responsible user, even without code review. And like one way that I've noticed that a freak told me personally that he'd used it for was he set up a cold card with dice rolls. And then on an offline computer, he confirmed the dice rolls with the seed generation on the seed tool. So he knew that cold card wasn't lying to him about that. And then he wiped the cold card and then generated a new seed and felt more comfortable trusting the dice math on the cold card because the first one worked, but didn't use that seed because he was too paranoid to have it in the seed tool.
Right. Yeah, that's the way to go. Another way you can do this is, you can just run Electrum on Tails and load the seed in there and see if it matches. I guess you could also run this too on Tails. Just please, people, be very careful with browser tools, not because the developers are nefarious. That's not the point. It's just because the browser is a absolute clusterfuck that was not designed to have any security. So just watch out to this. Although if you are using a burner seed, I mean, then there is really no harm. You can do that in any computer, really.
Yeah, and I feel like it helps. Getting hands-on stuff really helps with the education process. So the fact that they kind of make it very clear what is happening behind the scenes as you're using it, you can really like start to learn how these seeds are derived, how they're used in different ways. It's a nice way of just practicing and learning.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. People.
Yeah, I think I
go ahead, Justin.
I learned what a derivation path was. Like when I was first getting started, I learned what a derivation path was just using the Ian Coleman tool, which was great. So if you want to learn some of the basic stuff, like what is a derivation path, use a tool like this.
Yeah, no, it's nice because you put in the seed or xpriv, right? And then you pick a few buttons. I don't know about this tool, but in the Ian's, you pick a few buttons, and then it's sort of like it deterministically derives everything, right? So you can see like exactly all the types of exports that Bitcoin use in most wallets and how they interact with each other, right? That is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Tor Browser version 11.5, automatic censorship detection and circumvention, redesign network settings, including streamlined bridge options, HTTPS only by default. Finally. So yeah, I mean, Tor Browser is like 11 now. It's amazing to see.
To just be clear here, since you said finally, usually Tor Browser gets shipped with HTTPS Everywhere extension, which basically in practice made it HTTPS only, but now it's just built into the browser. So they removed the extension.
That's the way it should be, right?
Yeah.
Although one thing I hate about HTTPS by default, I don't know the behavior on the Tor browser, but the problem is, TLS certificates are all essentially centralized, right? You need a centralized authority, a CA, to issue those certificates, or the browser essentially don't work. Self-signed certificates don't work anymore on Chrome, for example.
But to be clear with Tor specifically, the concern is if you're visiting the ClearNet, you have to go through an exit node. So if there's no HTTPS, they can swap out man in the middle you on that, and we've seen them do that already. Now, I mean, if you wanted to go the real hardcore approach, it should just be no ClearNet websites, period. But the Tor team has taken the trade-off model that they think they get more user adoption if people are able to also visit ClearNet sites. But if you really want the best privacy guarantees, the best security guarantees, you should be doing Onion only websites, Tor only websites, and a lot of the good Bitcoin websites specifically have those available.
Yeah, I mean, Tor is pretty amazing. I mean, especially Tor v3. Having essentially a tunnel with a public key pair that is not centralized is a very cool thing. And so like I love Tor, even just internally we use, between servers and things, just because like it's a tunnel we trust. We're not like using some server sort of VPN kind of thing or anything like that. You just, you create a connection of Tors between them, and like, boom, you have yourself a very strong tunnel system, an intranet system for yourself. And sorry, it's just, you cannot live without ClearNet, right? I mean, even if so like I completely get the trade-off. I mean, you want your users to be able to access ClearNet even if they are at risk of some man in the middle there. I don't trust TLS personally, especially against the attackers, like the state actors going after Tor.
One thing I would add is a feature they added a couple months back is that if you are running a website and you care about privacy, there is a way to set a flag, basically. So if someone accesses it via Tor Browser, it automatically reroutes them to the Onion site.
Didn't know there was a script before you could put on your website, but that's nice that you can do that now.
I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's something the website admin has to set up. But once you have it set up, if someone puts your ClearNet address into Tor Browser, it goes to the Onion address.
Cool. I haven't followed much, but how's I2P working these days? Is it like catching on, or what's the deal with that? Nobody? Okay.
Justin, you have some insight here? I mean, I've been hearing I2P hype for like 10 years now, and it feels like it never gets off the ground.
Yeah, no, that's it's not an easy problem, eh?
I've never seen anything with I2P, never used it once.
I mean, to be fair, though, if it wasn't for state actors needing Tor as well for themselves, everybody who runs a Tor exit node would probably already be in jail. So it is essentially like it's similar incentives to Bitcoin in a way. Once state actors have Bitcoin, they don't want to kill Bitcoin, right? So because they need Tor themselves. What?
To a weaker sense, I would say the Tor threat model assumes that the U.S. will not actively attack it, while the Bitcoin threat model is fine with the U.S. actively attacking it.
That's correct. It's an interesting symbiotic relationship on that project. Okay, so Joinstr, it's a Coinjoin implementation using nostr, uses the nostr protocol for coordination. This seems very interesting. You guys know I am a JM fan. I have not tried this yet. I have heard interesting things about nostr. Any of you are nostr fans or knowledgeable about it?
I've tried JB55, William Casserin's Damas app. Yeah, I've tried his Damas app, it's really slick. Like, there's not a lot of people using it yet, but I could see this kind of catching on. I guess the protocol is just really, really simple. Just relays messages. You have to say which relays you want to send and receive messages to. So it's like the simplest possible version of something like this, and that was the design intention. Whereas other things like Web5 or whatever the block thing is, they're just like kind of complicated.
I would reiterate that the coolest part is that it's simple yet powerful. And I did have JB55 on Citadel Dispatch with Fiat Jaff, and we went pretty deep on it. It seems really promising. The number one use case that people keep talking about, that people are excited about, is a censorship-resistant distributed Twitter clone. But really, at its core, it's a simple communication platform protocol. So you can use it for a wide variety of things.
Get them to look at Twister. Remember Twister? Project from about 2014-ish, I think. It was the only thing that I ever saw that was actually a viable Twitter alternative P2P. And it was some Brazilian guy. And somehow the project sort of like went it off. Who knows? Maybe Twitter just hired the guy or something, like it had that vibe that like it got killed with an exit strategy there because it was clearly a viable solution Next is bitcoinbinary.org. The bot was updated. Kyle Dunn, I believe is his name. He contributed the code to upgrade the bot so that this site, which I am involved, it makes builds for reproducible build projects, which is a very good way for most people to gain some more confidence that the code is kosher. It's a very, very simple solution. If you want to go there and build other projects and submit, it doesn't matter if there's 10 submissions of the same project. That's actually just adds value. It just means that there is more people out there arriving at the same binary. I think that's it's a very simple way of finding more security for everybody.
Love it.
All right. Let's skip that hiring part there for after. Let's talk about the noteworthy projects. I heard about this Fedi that we've brought up the last episode, but it seems that like Fedi is now funded. Maybe Justin has anything to do with that.
Yeah, so we formed a company, myself, Obi, and Eric Sirian, to deploy Fedi mints, focusing on the developing world, global south, which we kind of discussed a little bit, NVK on that Spaces the other week. And the idea is like to actually take this kind of research project, which is now becoming, getting to the point where it's usable, and actually try to deploy them in the real world. And you sort of need a company to do that, in my opinion, because it's not enough to just have some nice code or a nice UX. You have to actually go and meet people where they're at and make it work for them. So really excited about that. Bring this Fedi mint's great for scalability, for privacy, and for custody too in some use cases. So I think it's exciting to try to actually bring that to people in the real world.
Good, and you got a pile of cash to do so. Good stuff.
So I mean, it would behoove me to state that my venture fund, 1031 VC, co-led this raise with Ego Death Capital and Kingsway Capital. I'm extremely personally bullish on Fedi mints as a concept. I think they can help improve the status quo of Bitcoin usage, both in terms of privacy and trust on the custodial side, because a lot of people just keep opting for using custodial options regardless of sovereign options out there, mostly because of convenience. So if we can make that status quo convenient option more private and require less trust than the current status quo, that's a massive win. There are a lot of conspiracies out there about me being bullish on Fedi mints because of a vested interest, because we funded them. What's
the problem with that? What's the problem with being excited about stuff and then you give people money because you're excited about the stuff so they build it?
Well, I appreciate that, MBK, but I'm going to address the criticisms real quick. First of all, we first gave them a no strings attached open source grant that we were very excited about, and then we funded their actual company, Fedi. Those should be treated as separate, in my opinion. And then second of all, Fedi mints as a project, as an open source project, is completely false. MIT licensed code. So anyone can fork it, run their own Fedi mints, do whatever they want, independent of the company. Which if anything, I'm more excited. I love you. I love you, Justin. And I love Obi and Eric. You guys are a great team, but I think I'm more excited about the FOSS project than I am about the company specifically.
Without companies and capitalization of things, it's very hard to find enough work and enough just people willing to work to build the things with consumer facing, right? Protocols themselves or standard themselves should absolutely be open, but the business solutions on top of them, you need companies behind, otherwise they get nowhere. This is a lesson that most people will always learn in free open source. It's just that you need both. and people need to learn how to like both playing with each other. There is no point in a pact of poverty. People need to find a way of making money, and money helps you build even bigger things and get even more people to adopt it. I think it's great. There's a lot of projects that started that way, right? You have essentially like a FOSS protocol thing that is mostly developed by the company that's trying to monetize it separately. And I think this model has a lot of legs. Good for you for funding it.
And we'd love to see other people building on top
But
of it.
Anyway,
too,
now that they're funded, I think Justin is hiring.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just saying, we'd love to see more people building on it. We'd love to see a lot of experiments, a lot of other deployments, a lot of apps on top of Fediment, and there's opportunities on the open source project to get some funding currently. So if you are interested in that, have the background, Rust or distributed systems, cryptography, something like that, do reach out to me or Eric or anyone else in Discord. And the company we're hiring, we're looking for a Rust developer, like a systems engineer, and then a mobile developer most of all. So if you're good at mobile, we've been using Flutter so far, we could switch to something else with the right person. If you're a real pro, please reach out.
When can I launch my ICO on Fediment?
Unlike Liquid, the goal of Fediments isn't to put shitcoins on Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I think the challenge that Liquid had was not making the HSM or really the federation code open, so that they could immediately have competitors using the same protocol and grow the protocol.
That's a key point, right? And it's what you were talking about, how to have an open protocol, but then have a company building on top of that to try and monetize separately is completely different than having a company that has basically put itself in there as like a point of control or a friction point.
To me, that's a beautiful model, right? In a way, that's how like Linux happened. Linux happened way more than Unix did, because there were companies trying to build solutions on top of Linux as a company, right? So like Red Hat or whatever, while the kernel was open. With FreeBSD and all the other tools, you had Apple building Darwin, which was really the only company that continued Darwin. They tried to close down a little too much, so it became their only thing, but they are behemoths, so they could just maintain it themselves. FreeBSD, on the other hand, it's way better than Linux. There's not even a comparison. But there's not as many companies that decided to build on top commercially. Except for now, you're starting to see come back, because you have pfSense that grew a lot. Real security stuff out there is all using either NetBSD, FreeBSD, or some other variation of it. This to me is the preferred model. You have the open protocol, ideally an open implementation of the protocol, and then you have companies building their solutions on top of that protocol, either closed, viewable, or open, however they decide to do it.
There's even a bigger difference here too, where I don't want to speak for Justin too much, but one of the key things is Fedi as a company doesn't intend to be a part of any federation, period. So it's not even like, anyone can launch a competing federation. Fedi's just not even going to be involved in the federation running process.
Well, that's also how I avoid jail. It's a great thing. Don't run the federations.
Yeah, it's not completely altruistic.
If you have a Fed that interfere with the Fed, it might be a problem. So you definitely want to be just a service provider, a technology provider, as we like to describe ourselves. I think that's a much more sound and sane way of operating a business.
If you're an expert mobile developer, please head over to Bitcoiner Jobs and apply for the Fedi mobile developer position.
Yes. But if you're a mobile developer engineer who's a great at Python and can build a cross application in Python, you should definitely hit Coinkite, because we actually ship things.
Yeah, the Python, you go to NVK and then...
The CKTAP protocol got repeated here by Nunchuk. That's already been talked about. TAPSIGNER is now shipping. It's $39. We'll probably decrease the price at some point, and SatsCard shipping soon. So go to the Coinkite store and get your TAPSIGNER. It works now. Yay. Sphinx announces
Right
VLS. Yeah, go ahead.
Right now,
Matt?
you can only use TAPSIGNER with Nunchuk, or is there any other apps that support it?
So there is a few apps out there. They're sort of like not officially supporting yet. So I'm not going to plug it in. Officially supporting is Nunchuk. And the guys from Hexa Wallet, which is, I think, Keeper or something like that. They are releasing, I think on their next release, we'll have TAPSIGNER as well.
They're launching a separate wallet. They're splitting up the two functions.
That's right. TAPSIGNER is essentially like a extremely simple Bitcoin hardware wallet. But it works as a blind signer. So if you give anything to it, it'll just sign.
What do you tell someone who, the status quo for Bitcoin hardware signing devices has been to have a screen on the device so that you can confirm what it's signing directly on the device rather than the potentially compromised computer or phone? What do you say to someone in that respect?
I think it's just a different set of trade-offs for a different value amount. So, if you're going to keep, a couple grand on your phone, use a TAPSIGNER. It's a lot safer than having trust on the app on the phone to have the private key, right? And also, if you lose your phone and somebody can get in for whatever reason, the private key is not there either. It's in your wallet, in your TAPSIGNER. So you have that. And then...
Would you say it competes more with like a mobile wallet rather than a COLDCARD or something like that?
No, it doesn't compete with COLDCARD at all. I would say it's not a competition with the mobile wallet. Is in addition to the mobile wallet, right? Because you're still using the mobile wallet. You're just not trusting it with keys for a single sig. So there is like a monumental gain there in security, right? Just by separating the transaction building device from the private key holding device. And remember, all phones are fully pound, right? Like a border agent can just extract everything from the phone. And then if you're going to use it for large amounts of money, just use multi-sig, right? If you're going to do multi-sig with TAPSIGNER, you're now like, back at that sort of high grade of security, because you can use a different device to double check the transaction before you sign it.
So you could have like two phones with two TAPSIGNERs, and then both phones would have to get pwned.
Yeah, or it could be a separate phone with a softer key on that phone itself, and then the TAPSIGNER on the other phone. It's already exponentially more secure than not. So because, for example, here's the challenge, right? Say you have 3 people using Nunchuk for collaborative multi-sig. The 3 of you are trusting Nunchuk with private keys. Same implementation of wallet, right? So at least, if 1 or 2 of those signers are using an external key device, you're gaining a lot more security there, right? In case there's a bug or whatever. So that's the idea. It's just adding another layer and really removing the key from the phone, especially on an app that allows you to have encrypted comms. You don't want that key there. So that's the idea. I mean, you can use it in conjunction of a COLDCARD for multi-sig and stuff in the same idea, but I think it's just right now there is no economically viable solution to people who cannot afford a $100 plus device, right? Because even Ledger, once you put in the euro cost and the tax and the shipping and stuff, it's still essentially $100, right? So if you are, in a country where your economical capacity is lower, $39 shipped by standard mail is pretty cheap. And we hope to bring the price down more soon too. And who knows, maybe we even find a way of subsidizing the cost in countries that people can't afford it. Because again, right, it's just a much simpler, cheaper form factor. So the economics of this are a lot better for people in countries where they can't really afford the next level of security, because they also have less money. So it's less money to protect, right?
I mean, to combine the two topics we just had together, I mean, you could foresee in a world where the TAPSIGNER holds a private key, public key pair that's your backup for your Fediment wallet. You use the Fediment wallet, and then if your phone gets lost or stolen, you can just restore by tapping the TAPSIGNER on it.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it. It's just a Bitcoin message digest signing, right? So it could be authentication. It could be just proof of presence, really, too, right? You can tap it and not even sort of like log in, right, with the PIN and stuff. That's already good enough for most cases. So if somebody finds your phone on top of a desk, unlocked or whatever, they can't just go and spend your money, right? I think, I am Mr. Tinfoil Hat when it comes to real money in Bitcoin, but like as we expand the Bitcoin pie, right, and we start to include people who have less means and less technical capacity, right, I think we need solutions that have substantially different sets of trade-offs for ideally an economical gain, in terms of being cheaper for them, right? I think that's going to be a game changer. And reality is in brick and economically below that, it's mobile first, right? People don't have computers. They probably have better internet on their phones than in Canada, but that's a different problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always remember, I had a fantastic conversation on Citadel Dispatch with Waxwing and Belcher about Bitcoin privacy. And I said to them, I was like, have you guys considered join market on a mobile phone? And Waxwing just immediate response was, well, if you want privacy, you shouldn't use a mobile phone.
But he's not wrong.
Yeah, but also like 6 billion people will probably be using Bitcoin using their mobile phone only. So we probably should have tools for that.
But then what's the alternative, right? They're going to go and immediately dox all their keys with one of the other Coinjoin wallets because they're not going to be running their own node. It's complicated. And the privacy folk all seem to have a different opinion that's very divergent. Unlike the security people who all disagree but seem to tend to go in the same direction.
I think that was a cheap shot for someone who's threatened to mute me if I talk about Coinjoin or privacy. But my point is just because a mobile phone does not offer perfection from an engineer point of view, doesn't mean we shouldn't have tools that provide the best possible experience in terms of privacy and security attainable on a mobile phone, because that's the reality of the situation. The reality, pragmatic way of looking at this is that the overwhelming majority of people are going to be using Bitcoin on their mobile phones. So we need
the Bitcoin on the phone. I agree. I just wish the Coinjoin implementations on phones would find an alternative to doxing people's coins to their servers. That's all by default. The main problem that I have is that default part. It's just something I personally cannot get over. But I'm sure there is like a large enough market out there of people who don't mind that part, because it's not. There is like the doxing is not like a full dox. I mean, you're doxing your coins to them, but if you're using a VPN or whatever, at least you're getting another layer there. It's not like they know who you are, but still.
I mean, well, first of all, the wallet in question has Tor enabled by default. So they do not know your IP address. The second thing is the first thing the wallet does is tell you that you should use your own node, and gives you the steps to using your own node, which is just scanning a QR code, which is as simple as a process is ever going to get to connect to your own node. And then most mobile wallets have this issue in general. One thing that people keep pointing out is, why don't you use Neutrino? Why don't you use block filters for this? I haven't seen a single wallet that has been able to do that in a performant way on mobile yet. It's much more doable on desktop. My understanding
I don't disagree. I'm not. It's that I'm not trying to be like pedantic about it. It's more just like it's a set of trade-off that deeply bothers me, but I also understand there's challenges around it. It's not like I'm not trying to have a cheap shot on said wallet aside from their wonderful personality online.
Well, I mean, I like my happy place in the Bitcoin world is to have as many people angry at me as possible. So right now, my current situation is, I think that the trade-offs that Samurai has chosen has positive benefits, and that it is a trade-off model with trade-offs. And I also think that the trade-offs that Fedimints are making are a very compelling trade-off balance. And it turns out that a lot of the people that don't like me or are concerned about me thinking that the trade-offs of Samurai are compelling, think the trade-offs of Fedimints are compelling, and then the people on the opposite side think I'm ridiculous for liking the trade-offs that Fedimints are making. So I've been pissing off people on both sides, which is exactly where I like it. But the one thing I will leave it at is, building on Bitcoin is permissionless. It is an open network. And I hope to see a world where there's so many different Bitcoin options that have various different trade-off methods, trade-off balances. And, not everyone's going to be happy with them. Like, people are going to be upset about different trade-offs, and that's their prerogative. They can choose the tools they want to use. As long as the trade-offs are clear, it gets to a scammy territory. It gets to a bullshit territory if the trade-offs aren't made clear to the end user.
Yeah, I think more options the better. I don't disagree with that. I think it's a good way of moving on from Coinjoin points. You made some great points there, and it must be fun to be you on that space, Matt. All right, we are moving on to the Sphinx announces VLS. Yeah, that's right. VLS signing device. The Sphinx team announced hardware signing device interfacing with validating Lightning Signer. I am not super familiar with VLS. Do you guys have some VLS points? No.
I mean, I have some experience with this. So the first thing I ever did in Bitcoin is I went to a hackathon. We built a Lightning hardware wallet. So we just took an Arduino and stuck a private key on there. It took like one file off of C Lightning that would do the signing and stuck it on the Arduino hardware wallet. Rodolfo making faces as I say Arduino, and so it's something I've thought about for a while. And so this Lightning verifying signer project, or validating Lightning signer project, is supposed to be able to basically make a Lightning hardware wallet. And it's an interesting thing to see discussions around it, because from what I've seen, they have to take tons of logic and put it on the device itself to actually make it work. So I still wonder if it's going to work, because it just it's I think it's more complicated than an actual Bitcoin hardware wallet in some sense. And it's almost like you damn near have half of a node running on this thing, it seems like sometimes, in order to actually make all the checks, you're not losing money. But yeah, it looks like at least Sphinx thinks that it's going to work, and they seem to be Lightning experts. So be excited to actually play with it. Looks like they'll ship one to you if you're a company. Little note at the bottom. So if anybody's interested, try it out. Let us know how it goes. Very
cool. Sorry, guys, I turned off all the cameras so that maybe the connection for Justin gets a little better. So VLS then sounds to me similar to parts of what LDK wants to do, where he wants to also be the policy HSM. I had a conversation with Steve, and they were interested in maybe getting LDK into a Java card or something like that at some point. I don't know what the status of this is, but it's major work to get something like this written for hardware in a secure, proper way, especially if the hardware is hot. Not an easy problem, but it's a problem that needs to be solved. So props to them. Cool. That's yeah. I mean, this is a hard problem, so it's nice to know that they're trying to sort of coordinate with more people, especially people who have some hardware experience as well. All right, Border Wallet. I saw this project the other day. I think I was listening to the Legacy weekly podcast about the news, and it's a very cool one. It's a way for people to memorize their seeds. I found that very cool.
If you want to listen to that podcast you just mentioned, search Rabbit Hole Recap in your favorite podcast app and click subscribe.
For the people that don't know, I'm just trying to create some drama here, but Matt actually releases this podcast on his syndication.
Yeah,
not
so
on the Rabbit Hole, but on the
Border Wallets is a very cool project. MBK is a little bit salty about it because it obsoletes sticking an open dime up your nature's pocket. But
it's not either or, Matt. It's not either or. You can still choose to do it. In fact, you can even put a cold card in your butt if you want to.
Don't do that. Not health advice. The one of the guys behind this is also one of the guys, SuperPhatArrow, with a PH. SuperPhatArrow is one of the guys behind that seed tool we were talking about. And basically, the general premise is, okay, how can we make it as easy as possible for you to generate a seed on a regular computer and memorize it for a short period of time if you're crossing a hostile border and you're concerned about carrying hardware across. So it shouldn't be used as your standard savings method, memorizing things is always dangerous. I've lost so many passwords that I thought I had memorized until I didn't. But if you're crossing a hostile border specifically and you're afraid that they're going to confiscate any hardware you have on you, this could be a compelling option.
Yeah, he was telling me on Twitter that he got some inspiration from the CDEXOR table. Right. So for you to reconstitute CDEXOR, we have a PDF so you can redo the CDEXOR by hand with a little table and pen and pencil, essentially. So he was telling me that he took some inspiration from that, which is kind of cool. I think that old school ways of handling cryptography related topics by hand are greatly underappreciated. Let's not we forget that one-time pads still the most hardcore way of encrypting something, and also one of the simplest ways of encrypting something. Justin, how about that one-time pad app?
I don't know what you speak of.
All right. Now we go to Keet, P2P comms by Bitfinex and Tether, which I think I misspelled. This seems promising. It's nice. The quality of the video seems to be great, and it seems to be something that might catch on. I don't know. All these P2P solutions seem to fizzle away and not get a lot of traffic eventually, but
the video quality is only limited by the peer's individual bandwidth, obviously, because you're connecting directly to each other without a centralized server. I would agree that with MVK that it's a compelling project. One thing to keep in mind is, as it's currently set up, you are doxing your IP address to any participants in the video chat, which can give away your general location, or with a sophisticated actor, more precise location and browsing activity. So consider using it with a VPN if you're going to use it. I assume if you use it with Tor, it would just be complete garbage. So a VPN it is if you want to protect that IP address.
Yeah, it's it reminds me, Skype used to be like that until Microsoft bought them and created backdoors and centralized services.
Yeah, that was part of the government conspiracy to get into our Skype calls.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way that that's true, right? Microsoft buys it, makes it completely useless.
I mean, I don't mean conspiracy as in unlikely. Like it 100% was the reason it happened.
I know. I'm just, yeah. So yeah, no, it's nice.
Skype had that like 10 years ago, and then
More.
everything moved over to a centralized model, so we could surveil everything. And now we're finally going back to the basics. Impervious is going to have something similar out soon. I'm sure a bunch of them are kicking themselves because they've been advertising Zoom without Zoom for months now, and it seems that Keet beat them to the punch by maybe a couple weeks. But what's interesting about Impervious's model is going to be directly integrated with decentralized identifiers, which I think could be pretty cool in terms of doing file transfer, encrypted chat, and encrypted video all at the same time.
What I found very cool about this Keet project is that, like, the people behind it have some very, very, very deep pockets, right? I mean, we're talking about Tether and Bitfinex. I mean, they're extremely capitalized entities who have very little incentive in building something like this. So I imagine that things are changing, right? These are companies that probably see harm in doing their everyday business through the standard comms, and they're probably investing heavily in having their own comms developed in an open way so that they can't be easily co-opted. I think we'll see a lot more of that. I mean, it's not like Tether is on the right side of the U.S. Cheek.
This is something that we've been talking about in Bitcoin land for a while, which is just this idea that ideologically aligned, freedom-oriented individuals and corporations will get so wealthy and so profitable that they'll do things for the greater good that don't necessarily have financial gain. And I mean, in this case, the incentives seem to be that Tether and Sphinx and the guys behind it want this tool for themselves, right? Yep. So why not open source it and provide it to everyone else without direct monetization on this specific project?
I mean, say, for example, you're talking like your Bitfinex, right? And you're talking to your securities lawyers, right? You can't trust that, people that shouldn't have access to that call, say the other side, right, of the litigation, is not listening to you talking to your lawyers. So, which is a perfectly legal application of something, right? We don't even need to go into the weeds with like what is right or what's wrong, but like this is something that the state deems legal, right? For you to have a client attorney privilege. So it's just really, really nice to be able to have your own comms that you trust to do standard legal business. I think in the future we're going to see a lot more of that because we all know that all the comms are compromised.
Yeah, so I tried this thing the first day. I tried this thing the first day it came out, and I was really impressed by the audio and the video quality. Like it felt as like better than Zoom. Honestly, I was really impressed. And so far, it's not open source. So far, and I don't think the app is open source. And there's a protocol underneath it called Hole Punch, which they've been sort of advertising. I think this is how they get over like the NAT traversal issues. There's like some relay servers involved or something like that. Maybe not relay servers, but this is how they basically get around having relay servers, I think. And they said they didn't open source it, but they're going to by the end of the year. And their excuse was that they didn't want some shitcoiners coming in and throwing a token on top of it. So hopefully that will happen, and there will
That's
be more
a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, as you all know, when you release your cold open, you will get scammers and cloners taking all your code and then trying to spin up another company on top of it, right? We all know how this works.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
By the way, like a quick review on the cloners project, it seems that they greatly increased weaknesses on the code as they continue, between quotes, innovating on that code base. Fascinating. But anyways, moving on. Justin, you have submitted this story for us here. James O'Byrne summarizing mempool research. It is mempool.work. I'm very curious about this.
Yeah, so it's I guess it's a little off topic. This is not really a product, but James has been doing some research on the mempool. Like there's like only a handful of people that really understand the Bitcoin mempool, even though we all use it. And it's kind of a sensitive issue for a lot of these second layer applications, like protocols like Lightning. You don't want to get into scenarios where you can't publish your justice transaction, or it gets delayed, or like you just lock funds up. And so there's on the mailing list for the last year, there's more and more proposals, and a lot of them just get kind of more and more complicated. And I think one of James's, so James sort of mempool.work on his GitHub, just search James OB mempool.work. I think he's going to make a website out of it eventually. But he's trying to like kind of summarize the state of the art. So if you've heard of some of this but would like just a summary, he does a great job of it. And he's kind of has like an interesting point of view that some of these problems might be kind of intractable. And one of the big risks is that if the validation logic in full nodes gets too complex, maybe miners just say like, screw it, just like give us transactions directly. And then all of a sudden you can't really do fee estimation anymore because your mempool and the miner's mempool don't resemble each other. So that's kind of like a risk that's on the horizon that he's kind of looking into. So interesting stuff.
But that's always kind of happened, right? I mean, there's plenty of entities out there that submit their own transactions to the miners, right? With like some sort of off-chain agreements. Let's put it this way. That's and not new.
It seems kind of unavoidable if we hit a sustained high fee market where mempools are filled with transactions. It seems almost unavoidable.
My suspicion is this, so let me call it intuition. My intuition is that I don't think we'll ever see a saturated free market as we saw way back on the block wars, because back then the biggest actors were misusing ignorantly, incompetently managing their UTXOs. Really, mainly talk about Coinbase, and to their own detriment. The incentive is the opposite, and then we had other actors trying to make a bigger problem out of that by sandbagging the mempool even further, at their own economic detriment as well. They all lost. So I think going forward, people will treat the mempool with more respect. The block size did essentially double since then. And now we have layer 2s, right? Remember, Lightning was not around back then. I mean, if you look at the Lightning volume of transactions, you can really see, or at least extrapolate, how much impact that would have had in today's mempools. I mean, you would probably have made the mempool now full if you were trying to make.
When is the Coinkite store going to accept Lightning payments?
First, we need to do bech32.
So what, like 2 months?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's important for some nodes out there who are economically viable to be using old node software that is very restrictive. I think it helps defend the network. We want many nodes out there that are using very restrictive old stuff. I think it shows the network you cannot deprecate things. And also, we're lazy and don't want to put in the time to change the store.
Would you agree with me that probably you don't integrate Lightning unless there's a sustained high fee market that pushes your hand?
Yes, it's very, very unlikely, and I'll explain why. We're not selling like $5 things or $1 things, right? We have like invoices that average between $500 to $1,000, and to be an inbound receiver of all that, it will get tricky, and we don't want to be sort of babying that and maintaining all that, or paying a third party to provide us liquidity, right? When I can still provide that one legacy address and people can pay for it.
You're kind of entering that range with the Sats card and the TAPSIGNER, though.
Yeah. But realistically speaking, knowing my customers, I think they're all going to just buy a pile of Sats cards because they're going to want different colors and different things. So I doubt. Maybe we could at some point come up with a separate solution that just handles the cards for single card orders, right? So there's like a blended system there somehow. Another thing people can do is they can go right now and buy Coinkite gift cards with Lightning in one of the 10 platforms that do it, and then just go with that discounted gift card and buy on the Coinkite store. That true. Also works.
Do you see the hypocrisy a little bit, though, that you don't think we're going to have a sustained high fee market like we saw previously because services are integrating Lightning, but meanwhile Coinkite has credit cards integrated but not Lightning?
Yeah, so I don't see that as a hypocrisy. I see it as the opposite. The incentives and the economic sort of size model of our transactions does not require it, right? But when you have people trying to do, like set streaming or buying porn subscription or feeding chickens or in-game stuff, that makes complete sense for Lightning. And those transactions would have been economically stupid to be on main chain, right? You don't want that stuff to be on base layer because those transactions are economically nearly irrelevant, like versus block size. While our transactions are not at, say, the next few years, eventually everybody's going to have to be on Lightning. But then by that time, I don't think we're going to have the same issues with liquidity issues on Lightning for transactions of our size.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I was just playing devil's advocate. I like the idea of the gift cards as a stopgap.
It's a stable coin. I find it's like, especially with all the FUD about the block reward. I find the conversations and the economics of the block space and Bitcoin's supply cap to be very like a lot of fun. Like, these are my preferred things to argue about in Bitcoin. I think they're valid things to talk about, and they're very interesting because they're also very novel, right? The fiat system has never had to encounter these issues. They have their own sets of trade-offs. So there's a lot to be talked about and try to figure out so that people can prepare their businesses to continue. All right. Bitcoin Core updates from Bitcoin OpTech. The Bitcoin Core is adding watch-only support for output descriptors written in Miniscript. That's interesting. Miniscripts are getting used. And we can get into details of that. And also, they are updating their GUI to be able to restore a backup. Before you had to use the CLI, but now you're going to be able to use the GUI. So that's nice. 2 little updates to Bitcoin Core. Do you guys have any opinions about that?
It'll be interesting to see if people actually use the Miniscript stuff. It's like a powerful tool both for like composing a script, but also if you, also interpreting a script. So I just wonder what like taking a script and figuring out like what the spending conditions are there. I wonder Yeah, I wonder if people actually use this because, like, BDK has been doing a lot of miniscript stuff, and like, I'm not sure how many like exotic use cases have been dreamt up yet. Like, I'm not really aware of any exotic use cases yet. That like, whether it's going to be anything more than just like a new backup format, because that's basically what people use it for right now. Like, miniscript is like an extension of descriptors, and it's mostly used as a backup format right now, which is useful, but it's not. It wasn't the original intention. The original intention was to be able to produce wallets that had more complex spending conditions.
Yeah, I mean, the output descriptors for multisig is very useful. It does help with a lot of the backup, especially. I think the miniscript stuff is really going to shine once you get into Schnorr and all that stuff and very complex scripts.
Wait, is it true here that you couldn't restore a Bitcoin Core backup from the GUI until now? Wow. That just goes to show how early we are still, huh?
No, I mean, no, the problem is, like, technically speaking, unless you are a developer, you should not be using Bitcoin Core as your wallet. You really shouldn't. It was not like, I mean, it's a product of its time. It's a product of its sort of like intent at the time. But there's a reason why Electrum came right after that. And got like huge market share. One thing that people may not know is that the name Bitcoin Core came really from Gavin, who was going to split. I don't know if it was his idea. I can't remember who his idea was at the time, but there's always been this intent to split the consensus, the all the Bitcoin logic stuff from the web GUI, right? And that essentially never happened. And there's many reasons why that shouldn't happen either, just because it's going to cause a clusterfuck, and just simply don't use Bitcoin Core as a wallet. But if you're trying to validate some more complex stuff you're trying to do, maybe having the funds on Bitcoin Core is not a bad idea either. So I'd say the Bitcoin Core wallet should only be used by devs. Everybody else should just use some other wallet. It in my view, is actually unsafe, just because, not because the code quality is not amazing, but just because the UX of it and its particularities are unsafe for the average user.
I mean, a good example of this is one thing that I noticed. I'm not sure if it changed, but I noticed this like 5 months ago. Like, the standard for showing fee rate in the Bitcoin ecosystem has pretty much coalesced on sats per byte. But Bitcoin Core GUI defaulted to bits per kilobyte, which is just confusing.
Exactly. It's like the problem with it's the UX of it really is the very, very last mile of the GUI there is not meant for average people. It really isn't. All right. Next is BitcoinTreasuries Update. It was a small update. Elon has let us hands. I don't have a lot of commentary on this, but I just wanted to point it out that we have updated the BitcoinTreasuries.net website, and now Tesla reflects its capacity of holding Bitcoin with 2 emojis. I highly recommend checking those emojis out. Next here is Bitcoin Meshnets, an article by Lola.
Have you noticed a lot of selling from the miners recently?
I think they stopped. I think some of the biggest ones were over leveraged, so they dumped to deleverage, and I think it stopped. I was talking to a miner friend who has a sizable mine, and he told me that because he had a nice strong cash position, he's been buying a lot of small miners out for cheap. So he's having a great ball of a time.
I mean, see that every cycle where during the bear markets, miners consolidate and only the strong survive. I will say that this cycle has been a little bit more extreme because we have not seen the kind of leverage at play on the miner side as we have this cycle. This cycle was completely dominated by specifically American-based miners that were able to get cheap debt to buy more miners, and a lot of times that debt was collateralized by ASICs themselves. So the machines were the collateral, which we've never really seen before in previous cycles.
The cycle was the first cycle that there were mature Bitcoin-backed lending, generally speaking, right? And I think a lot of Bitcoiners got caught off guard with their margins. I think people learn how to handle margins and leverage a little better. Not that I don't believe most people were seeking leverage for leverage's sake. I think people were just sort of trying to find ways to not sell Bitcoin and find fiat. Cost of capital was very low last year, so the interest rates were very low for these Bitcoin-backed loans as well, and a lot of those went to miners. On top of the ASIC-backed loans as well. But that's all part of the same bundle of extremely low collateral capital cost that has sort of like increased substantially in the last few months. I think the space is sort of like learning the lessons as it goes, right? I mean, it's not easy to break new ground, especially in economics. It's not easy for people to learn how to manage these extremely volatile savings accounts that they have, which is Bitcoin. It takes time and it takes some mistakes, but people will figure it out. Running a Bitcoin company, running a mining company, it's essentially a Bitcoin company. It's the equivalent of having a directional trade. That means, when things go good, you do extra good, and when thing goes bad, you go extra bad. That is the biggest issue with having a directional trade, right? So if you earn in Bitcoin and you also sell things for Bitcoin, I mean, you're double fucked when the Bitcoin price goes down, and you do, incredibly well when the price goes up. So trying to find a balance of a USD cash position or how you hedge that is not easy. And small businesses are also not, they're just simply not sophisticated enough to do trading, and they shouldn't be, right? Or to figure out just how to hedge things, even if it's not directly trading. It's not an easy problem, and it's a problem that every single Bitcoin company will have. All right. So the Bitcoin Meshnets article by Lola. Matt, I imagine you probably seen this one.
Yeah, it was actually, I believe it was in the print magazine as well.
That's right.
The print magazine, by the way, this month has this quarter, their quarterly magazines is absolutely phenomenal. It's called the Censorship Resistant edition, and the Canadian truckers are on the front, which is really good to see.
Yeah, so I mean, Bitcoin Magazine has been killing it with being Bitcoin only with the right ethos in the last sort of couple of years now, right? I mean, they really turned the magazine around. Props to David Bailey and CK and all the folks there. They've been a power of good in the Bitcoin space, I gotta say. So they're running a conference in Amsterdam. Go buy tickets. I'm sure they would appreciate ticket sales. I don't have a promo code.
It's b.tc/conference.
There you go.
If you want to buy tickets. But just to go back to Lola's piece, it's not just a theoretical piece. Her and the RGB folks have been working in Ukraine to get Meshnets up because the Russians have cut a lot of their internet over there. And the general premise of Meshnets is a super promising premise, which is this idea that you have distributed nodes that are communicating directly with each other to set up basically these ad hoc networks that don't require existing internet infrastructure. And then if one of them is able to connect out to the global internet, whether that's through a hard line or something like Starlink, then the whole mesh net also has that internet access through that gateway.
So here's an interesting thing that most people may not know. With standard power Wi-Fi with a directional antenna that you could go and buy or build it yourself, you can get almost 10 kilometers in line of sight with decent bandwidth and reliability. So Wi-Fi itself, as is available in every device and is extremely powerful if you just sort of use it in the right way. Meshnets themselves are not an easy problem. Finding that doing the packet redirecting and management is not a simple problem. Is also one of those projects that, because there isn't, or at least till now, maybe coming soon there will be, but there just isn't enough economic incentive for somebody to go and build out. All the solutions are not easy solutions, and then you bump into state actor problems based on licensing for the radios. Even for Wi-Fi, if you know the way licensing works in most Western world is type approved. So that means when you create a radio device, that device is licensed for that specific purpose, at that specific power, at that specific everything. And if you change just a single parameter on it, or you tweak the antenna or whatever, the license is lost, right? So it's very difficult for a professional manufacturer to sell a device that goes against what the state wants, really. And that's for many reasons, good and bad, right? Like radio is kind of a common good, let's put it this way. The spectrum is freely available in the universe. And you know, you can have a dickhead with an amp completely disturbing everybody else's transmission, right? So it's complicated that way. That's why they're so hardcore about spectrum as well. And then there's all the issues of monopolies and blah, blah, blah. But my point, generally speaking, on this is just that it's going to be hard for you to see meshnet quality professional radio solutions out in the market that don't require at a minimum a ham radio license, just because manufacturers don't want to go to jail. But I have a good sort of optimism in the fact that you will see better homebrew solutions that are very, very usable in a situation in which you may need it.
Well, I mean, you don't really have that issue in failed states or war zones. Well,
you do, because the manufacturers are not creating that amazing plug and play solution, right?
Right. Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's not out of the box.
Exactly.
You're building it yourself for the most part.
Yeah. And then when you go below 30 megahertz, where stuff gets lower bandwidth, but way more interesting distance and power wise, then it's internationally managed by ITU. So for example, you know, one thing that I'd love Bitcoiners to do in the next bull cycle is go to failed states and buy their AM stations that are licensed for that country or whatever, and then just broadcast blocks. And then maybe even we find a way of getting an AM station in North America that can do that with the correct license, right? You would find a lot of interesting things possible that way, because if you are broadcasting on AM on an AM band, for example, you could have a device that costs, say, like maybe $3, $5 receiving blocks with minimum power. And then that's it, really. I mean, like, you're really at next level decentralization. But everything in time. And I find that this kind of things only come when the screws really get twisted in developing world, which we may not see.
MVK, I mean, you have a lot of knowledge on this topic. You have a successful Bitcoin business, and you live in a failed state. So I look forward to the Coinkite radio tower.
Canada is becoming a failed state, isn't it? So I am set up for HF here. I can definitely broadcast my blocks if I need to. And the law on ham radio is very clear. In an emergency, I mean, technically you are entitled to do it if that would save somebody's life. And we are working on a radio, but that would not be for Bitcoin. That would be for general purpose digital use. And that could be interesting as well. Yeah, I mean, Fedi should look into doing some of that stuff because you guys are going to go straight to third world, right? So maybe you guys find a country that's friendly towards that, and you can do the development there.
An interesting thought.
Right, next. Yeah, exactly. Gloria Zhao added as a Bitcoin Core maintainer. I just felt like we should just mention it. She now has commit access to a Bitcoin repo. Reminder, everybody, Bitcoin Core is not Bitcoin. It's just a group of people who tend to be accepted as the main implementation. There is no formal process for picking who's the next person. Probably a good thing too, because if you have a proper process, it means people have a proper loophole. So I like that this thing is messy, and it should stay messy for a little longer. And then eventually, I'm sure we'll come up with some method to this madness to picking people.
I think I disagree with that. I mean, I do agree with the fact that Bitcoin Core is not Bitcoin. And the number one thing Bitcoiners have on our side is we do not have auto updates. So ultimately, it's up to you whether or not you update Bitcoin that you are running on your computers and on your nodes. But I will say that Gloria is just absolutely awesome. She's a great person. She has a really good understanding of Bitcoin. And she just, I have a ton of respect for her. So I think she's a great choice here to jump into that maintainer role. But I will say that where I disagree with you is it'd be nice if there was a little bit more, I don't know, objectivity or transparency in the selection process. It was kind of like Peter stepped down, and then within like the same day, it was like, okay, Gloria's in. Bam, bam, bam. Like, it happened in like private chats where they were discussing.
Exactly. Everything happens in private, right? But like I see this more as a quality defense, because I think if this was open, people would start like an unwanted sort of war over this for no reason, where just simply snuffing things off as just like, hey, well, here's a new contributor. It makes it unimportant, and being unimportant is a feature. It's like it's a nice defense.
Justin, I'm curious on your opinion on this.
I mean, there's a bit of a process. You do have, you're proposed as a contributor, and then people can ack it or knack it like anything else. And I know in Gloria's case, there was at least one knack that I saw, but it was largely, positive. And every once in a while there's a knack just means like a no, ack means yes. There was, almost everybody was okay with it who was like an actual contributor. So there is a bit, there's at least there's like a sort of a confirmation process where like if somebody in a chat got proposed that wouldn't be popular with the people contributing to the project, where the contributors would disagree with it, that just wouldn't they wouldn't get like kind of confirmed, so to speak.
Yeah, it's such a thankless job that it'll probably be hard to find somebody who wants to do it to begin with.
It is getting to know some of these people over the years. You realize a lot of these people are, it is a very painful job.
Yeah, it's an understatement, right? How brutal it is. Yeah. So congrats, Gloria. And now I have some links there to the OpTech newsletters. I highly recommend people subscribe to them. They have way more meat than this podcast. And I'm still not capable of looking at the Bitcoin Dev mailing list because the long-term block reward discussion is an absolute no. And it was pretty funny. Greg Maxwell did write a big piece on I don't think he ever wrote anything small, but he wrote like a nice wall of text about the tail the tail emissions on the Bitcoin Talk. If you're new to Bitcoin, you may not know that Bitcoin Talk is a PHP BB forum where everything Bitcoin was talked back in the day, and is still being used by many who are into that format of discussion. And you find many fun nuggets by Maxwell there. So he recently decided to tear at Todd's suggestion, which
Remember
was
when we paid Thamos a shit ton of money to create a new Bitcoin Talk forum, and he decided he was going to make a completely new forum stack, and then we're still on the same Bitcoin Talk that we've had for the last 12 years, 10 years, or whatever.
I was not a contributor, but I've heard that Thamos will still release the new forum. Is coming any day.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And I heard that they're partnering up with BFL and Obelisk to deliver miners.
Well, needless to say, I mean, I don't know if it's needless to say, but I never donated any Bitcoin to that Bitcoin Talk fund. But a lot of people did. There was a lot of Bitcoin in there.
It was about, 4,000, 10,000 Bitcoin?
Insane.
Well, at that time, it was not that much money, but still.
Can't build new forum software with that.
Yeah.
What do you fucking do?
And then I think they had a demo using Discord. Anyways.
Maybe Bitfinex
all right,
can get into
so the next part
business.
here is... Yeah. Okay, so I was going to talk about the hiring part after the Noteworthy, but we already mentioned that Fedi and Coinkite are hiring some people. But there is more Bitcoin companies hiring a lot of people, and these are great companies to work for. There is this great place to look for Bitcoin jobs, which is bitcoinerjobs.com. I think it's worth shilling their website. They don't charge for people to list jobs. And there's a lot of great positions there and fun companies to work for. So if you wanna work for people, if you're looking for a job, if you're looking to get out of your shitty job or your great job for a shitty job, check out bitcoinerjobs.com. They don't pay me for this ad. All right, Bitcoin events. Matt was sending me a list of a bunch of Bitcoin Park Nashville events. Do you want to mention some of them, Matt?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a big August at Bitcoin Park, our Bitcoin and community focused campus in Nashville. In August, we have our meetup, which is focused on digital footprint and privacy, is on August 10th. Right before that, so that's open to the public. You can find all these events at nashbitcoiners.com. And then right before that, we have a Builders in Bitcoin workshop, which is focused on different projects in the Bitcoin space, basically do demos for a smaller group of people. The following day, we have a digital identity workshop on August 11th. And then we have Rockstar has decided... prolific Bitcoin developer, contributor to BTC Pay server, and one of the leads at Strike, Rockstar Dev, has decided he's going to kill his NIM. So he's having a funeral at Bitcoin Park on Saturday, August 13th. A lot of people are flying in for that. And then this one is farther off in the distance, but I want to put it on everyone's radar. We are doing the Nashville Energy and Mining Summit on January 12th to start off the new year. We've had two previous meetups that we're focused on mining, that we've had over 250 people, very strong people in the mining community and the energy community come from around the world to attend. So we're going to do a bigger event in January. That is a 2-day event.
Very cool. I wanted to plug in Tab Conf. Michael does a great job with this conference. It's a more technical conference that is friendly to people that are not technical, which is kind of cool. He is looking for more sponsors. This is a product of passion. It's not like a big commercial enterprise sort of running it. So if you're a Bitcoin company that have some bucks to spare, do go and sponsor TabConf. BitBlock Boom is happening in August.
Before you go to BitBlock Boom, TabConf is awesome. That's tabconf.com, and that stands for the Atlanta Bitcoin Conference. That's happening in October.
Yeah,
great conference.
tabconf.com. So yeah, I wish I could attend, but the timing is not gonna work for me. But we are helping them with sponsorship. So BitBlock Boom is happening next month in August. So that is an awesome conference. Highly recommend people go. What else is happening anytime soon for events?
Riga.
Yeah, there is Riga, but that's later in the year, right?
No, Riga's before all these events, except the Nashville events. It's September 4th through 6th, I think, or something like that. September 3rd through 5th.
There you go.
In Latvia. Beautiful city. Great people. Everyone speaks English. Super cheap.
Awesome conference.
Really great conference run by the Hodl guys. I think that's BalticHoneybadger.com. If you DuckDuckGo or Google or whatever, Baltic Honeybadger, it'll come up.
I think we have a link on the previous episode notes as well. That's I mean the BitDevs meetups and all the other meetups are picking up a lot now. They're doing a very good job at sort of advertise themselves. So I don't have a list of them here. If you are a meetup organizer and you want us to mention your event, just please let me know. Go to bitcoin.review and submit your event story or whatever, or go to the Telegram that we created for this and let us know there, or email me, whatever. Just do let us know so we can mention it, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to find these things. So with that, I think we've successfully read the list. I think we unsuccessfully did it boringly, but I think we've reached a point of the show now where we say our goodbyes, unless you guys have any other updates that I may have missed. No,
I'll work on my internet connection for next.
Perfect. So there you go. With that, I say goodbye. Follow us on Twitter.
Actually, I do have something.
Go ahead.
Sorry, NVK. Sorry, listeners. Sorry, Justin. I spent the last weekend in Crawford, Colorado, at a Bitcoiners family ranch. His name is Jason Reich. That was for the Beef Initiative, beefinitiative.com. It was a really special experience. Him and his family treated us like family, hosted us on their ranch. There was about 100 of us. We talked about ranching. We talked about food. We talked about child raising. We talked about Bitcoin. We talked about proof of work. It was just a fantastic experience. They're going to have another event in Georgia at White Oak Pastures in September. That's coming up. But in general, this is a really great initiative that Bitcoiners should pay attention to. I think the topics are broad, but they're intimately aligned with each other in terms of the new world we're trying to empower or make possible. So shout out to everyone who was involved with that. It was a really, truly humbling experience. And I just want to say that I did a Bitcoin 101. In 15 minutes, I onboarded 50 ranchers, which was a pretty impressive feat.
So I think we've covered. We did good. I think the last episode was about 2 weeks ago. So maybe we do this in another couple weeks, depending on the volume of stuff. I did a little bit earlier instead of 3 weeks because there was enough stuff, and I wanted us to be able to give enough time for each thing. Thank you so much for you guys helping with this. It's a pleasure having you guys as guests. And for anywhere else, thanks for listening.
Thanks, MVK. Always a pleasure. I'll see you all next time we record. Cheers.
See you next time.